Hey folks, welcome to the Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. In today's episode, we're going to talk about mosaic damascus, and specifically tiling mosaic damascus. So let's get into it. So let's talk about mosaics. And the key difference between a mosaic pattern is the pattern is on the end of the billet, like you see here. And that means we need a way to transfer that pattern from the end of the billet so that it's on top of the billet so you see it on the side of your knife. The way we accomplish this is to cut tiles or kind of slices on the billet. So here you see a top view with slices cut at 35 to 45 degree angles. And then the red lines you see there, that's where our pattern is. Then we're going to rearrange those tiles so that they're flipped, and we're going to flip every second tile, and I'll let you guys go think about it, but that's going to make that pattern flow across the tiles correctly. And notice now that the red line where the pattern is on the surface and on the bottom, which is what we want. So typically your tiles are going to be usually a ½ inch thick or thicker, and then you're going to have to forge weld them all together, and that's why they're overlapped at an angle. Okay, and then you're going to want to draw that billet out, and then you're going to be making your knife. If we go back and look at the slicing up of the tiles, you'll notice that the length of the face, the red line, is longer than the width of the billet. So we've already stretched that pattern a little bit by cutting it on an angle. And now, if we were to draw that billet out, because remember, it's a ½ inch or more thick, once we forge weld it, it's still going to be pretty thick. We need to draw it out. And if we just started with that square bar, we would have a complete distortion of the pattern by the end. And this is the problem we're going to talk about today, and how do we solve it? The primary way to solve it is just to distort the billet, kind of like this, before you start cutting slices. But the reason I'm doing this video today is my buddy Rick from Rick Hall Knives in Reno asked me, what do you use for the math for this? And I said, well, it depends on a bunch of things. It depends on the angle you cut the tiles. It depends on the thickness of your tiles. What do you want your final thickness to be? There's a whole bunch of variables. So I told him, I'll actually sit down and write a program or basically a spreadsheet that will calculate all this for you. So I want to show you guys this. It's going to be available on my website, in the shop section of my website, for free. You'll have to go buy it, but it's $0 and you can download it. Or I'm going to put a post on my Patreon for Patreon members. You can just download it from there. So let's go take a look at that program, show you how it works, and you'll gain more information about how to size your billet before you cut up your slices for your tiles. I want to mention our sponsor, Maritime Knife Supply. If you need steel to make some mosaic damascus or anything else related to knife making, you definitely want to go check them out. They have quick shipping and they'll get your stuff to you really quick. Okay, so here's the mosaic calculator. It's actually quite simple and I'll take you through it. There's a bunch of parameters here. The ones in white are the ones you can enter. The blue ones are the calculated ones. What we want to do is figure out the start height. In other words, what the starting height should be, so you get a 1-to-1 ratio at the end, meaning you get the pattern back to a perfect square, despite whatever your start width is. So the parameters that you need to give it is, what is your starting width? Okay, and these can be inches, centimeters, it doesn't matter. It'll calculate it. It'll just return it in the same unit. You need to know the tile angle. You need to know the tile thickness. And it'll calculate the tile width. And then now we move on to how are you going to forge this? And I give you a couple options because a lot of people will
forge this down, forge weld this together with, say, flat dies on a press. And flat dies on a press behave a little differently than, say, drawing dies, or if you're drawing it out with a power hammer. So that's why I included both of these. So in this example, my start width is 0.75. My tile angle is actually pretty thick. It's 65. Let's just change it to 45. Tile thickness is also 3/4 of an inch. And the tile width is calculated at just over an inch. So remember, even though my starting width is 0.75, because of the angle, you can see that my tiles are quite a bit wider than that. So if I want to forge this down when forge welding, okay, so I'm going to go from 0.75 tile thickness down to a new tile thickness of 0.5. So I'm going to take it down 33%. My new tile width, okay, because it's going to stretch, is now an inch, 1.3 inches. So now if I want to, say, use drawing dies, let's say I'm using a rolling mill or something like that, and I want my end thickness to be 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. So I'm now going down from 0.5 to 0.25, and this means I'm only drawing it in one direction. Okay, I'm only lengthening the billet. My new tile width will be 2.6, which is also what my starting height should be. So looking back at the original diagram, if my start width was 0.75, my starting height should be 2.6. So that's quite a bit. It's quite a bit taller than it is wide if I want 45-degree angle cuts and a tile thickness of 3/4. If you didn't want to calculate this with flat dies, you could just ignore this portion. You could just make this 0.75, and then these two numbers are the same since it didn't do anything, and then it would tell you you're only drawing it. Let's say you're doing this entire thing on a power hammer and it was drawing the whole thing, then you need to make it even taller. Hopefully this makes sense to you. Again, this little spreadsheet is up on my website. You can download it and take a look, and it will be in Excel format, an XLSX.
Hopefully this video was useful for you. If you do mosaics and you need to cut up tiles, I'm pretty sure this is going to help you out. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on the next one.